So if you watched yesterday's video, and obviously if you haven't, go watch that right now. Like, what are you doing? Massive hater alert. But if you watched yesterday's video, then you will know that I did mention Oricorio Pom Pom actually got banned from NU this past weekend. And I'd like to believe that this battle between Diamonds Rum and Eternally is part of the reason why. We had a council vote back, I think it was like October 7th or something. It was many weeks ago, early in the month. And in that vote, that's when Cress and Ironthorns were banned. But almost more importantly, Oricorio Pom Pom was literally a single vote away from getting banned. And this past weekend, we revisited the vote because, well, when you have a vote that close, you kind of get automatic justification to revisit it. And I believe this battle is probably the best showcase of why people wanted it banned. Not because of, like, anything else other than just the sheer absurdity that Pom Pom sweeps kind of look like when they go about as optimistically as you can hope for one to go. Of course, you've been enjoying the content as of late. If you, too, are a competitive Pokemon fan that loves daily uploads where we just have a whole bunch of fun, I'm gonna need you to go down and press that subscribe button. I want to hit my 9K sub benchmark. Pretty please. So I'll brother out. Of course, eternally knowing that hyper offense is like a possibility to be used in him every week, and finally giving up on balance, it felt like, in my PMs with him kind of recently. Like the past weeks, you know, both of us have kind of just accepted balance is not very good in this tier. Now, we say that, and balance, kind of. This is a little bulkier than balance, but we'll still call it balance. Balance. A lot of people still using it, but both players with a hyper offense team with Ambipom to counterstyle HO, because yeah, I mean, I feel like the narrative is that Eternally is very tilted, which is true, and hyper offense is a great way to tilt people further. So he has pretty much a hyper offense proof hyper offense in a sense, where fake out Ambipom is going to give you a lot of extra counterplay just through revenge killing. You potentially have Encore on Screamtail with a booster speed. Tauros can have Aqua Jet. Toxicroak can have Sucker Punch. Technically, Klefki could be T-Wave, but if it's on hyper offense, odds are it's just not T-Wave keys. But again, you talk about potential sets. You got that. I mean, even First Impression Flygon is technically a potential set. But again, hyper offense, I'm probably not running Abandoned Flygon. And then Diamonds, of course, has your standard grassy terrain with Pokemon like Grafaiai, Hitmonlee, Oricorio. But the little difference with his team is there's a Galarian Slowbro as opposed to maybe a Uxie. He said in testing that he liked Glowbro a lot more. So he's got that going on here. And in terms of the matchup, I mean, it's hard to cite any one mon, I feel, on either team as just like, oh yeah, this mon just is super devastating. Because when you have hyper offense versus hyper offense, it's all about momentum. And I believe personally that it's literally just a matter of which opponent, or which player I should say, gets their momentum first. And they are likely to spiral the game into their favor. Now, it also plays into a bit of a sack game at a point, as a way of trying to get some momentum back in your favor. So it can be a very swingy game. Naturally, I would kind of favor Eternaly's team a little bit, just given that he has a lot of priority, which gives him a lot of extra insurance into the HO mirror. But Diamonds, of course, with grassy terrain, has some very dynamic sweepers, unburdened mons with Grafaiai and Hitmonlee. Just pointed them at the wrong order, confused myself. Those are really scary, and Pom Pom is quite literally Eternaly's kryptonite. So, I could lead into the Flygon. And it's here that Eternally reveals that he has not come to play nice. Fire Blast and Klefki turn 1, smoking its pack with the Life Orb Flygon. And for literally forcing Diamonds to go into Hitmonlee, because there's nothing else on his team that tanks this Draco. So he has to go lead just to live one hit. And he's able to get a Sword Sense off, which does end up working well for him. As he then two-shots the Croak on the follow-up with knockoff into a close combat. You may wonder why the Toxicroak didn't Sucker Punch. My logic was he just didn't feel like letting Diamonds go for a greedy sword stance or something there, so there you go. And then as you see the Ambipom functioning as it should by picking off the Hitmonlee with that fake out afterwards. And then you got Screamtail coming out versus the Glowbros. The Glowbro has Combine, and we see it's also Grassy Seed, because why wouldn't you have Grassy Seed on your entire team? But we do see Eternally end up not revealing Encore, which means it's just going to be a 3-attack Screamer set. And we get a nice little Combine Door. Which of these users is more at peace with their inner self? And the early returns on the trade do end up looking quite nice for Diamonds. But Eternally here with a very nice little read. Thinking Diamonds will get a little cheeky, try and slack off after another Boom Burst. Denies it and then gets a higher roll. So he ends up coming out on top. And Diamonds never getting a quick draw proc if he had it. If he was regen, well, not really possible to switch. So he picks off Screamer with that glide. Goes into his Thwacky. Well, he already has it out. I can't speak, man. Gets a dodge with his Thwacky on the 2 other Axle hits, so he ends up getting a lot of extra chip onto Django the Ambipom. As now Grafaiai comes out, because I guess he doesn't want to dedicate yet to the Pom-Pom. Kind of going for the most optimized route possible, where you just have as much chip pretty much in your favor going for Pom-Pom before it finally goes to sweep. And of course, seeing the Klefki set, he's Demon Keys, so Pom-Pom has to come out now, has to taunt this Mon. You know, say, no more boosting for you. You've had enough fun today, Eternally. It's time to stomp out your fun. So Terasteel. And it's kind of what I was talking about a little bit in yesterday's video. This is the only set this Mon runs. There's no set diversity. You could talk about these other sets all you want. They don't exist. Terasteel, Taunt, Mono Air Slash. That is what you run on Eternally. Yes, I'm calling it Eternally. You know why? Because Eternally has hated this Mon for far longer than anyone else. Now here, I find a very funny chat sequence. Let's get a miss into Air Slash Flinch with Terra Electric. I thought that was really funny. And then Diamonds with a very nice play here. So he goes for the Roost, knowing it lets him live a close combat and the next Air Slash would kill. But then, because he knows Eternally has to switch to reset the defense drops, he ends up getting off a Roost. As he also knows nothing that's coming out can actually threaten Pom-Pom significantly enough. Flygon's the closest thing because crits. And so this actually lets him try and boost up a little bit more with the Pom-Pom. And it's going to let him get into a spot where he now does not need a defense drop from the Tauros. He's just got enough boosts. I'm just going to skip ahead because it's literally Eternally hoping to God that he crits with every attack. And then Diamond's trying to roost to as high an HP threshold as he can. But now, Tauros is just dead to Air Slash no matter what. Eternally also not revealing Aqua Jet probably just tells me he would rather dodge than try and create a Jet, or he didn't have Jet. But I believe I'm remembering my percentages right. Crit chance is like what, 8% nowadays or something? It's I think a single digit number. So technically, yeah, better to go for the miss of Air Slash. And then yeah, Django just does not miss his Air Slashes. Make sure to taunt the Klefki as well so that it cannot get out of hand. He roosts back up to not full, but you know, good amount of HP. And then he will be able to Air Slash down this pair of keys, even getting a couple flinches on the way out, as Eternally dropping a GGIG. Because yeah, I'd be just as mad about this game too. And this is kind of why I said what I said at the beginning of the battle, where I believe this is more than anything what caused the derision towards Oricorio Pom-Pom and why people wanted this Mon banned. It's not because of it having some like insane versatility between its setup sets, because in reality that just didn't ever manifest in this metagame. If you want to look back to Oricorio in previous metagames, hell yeah, it had set diversity. You really did have to prep for both offensive and bulky setup variants. You did have to care about the Thread Revelation Dance, but in this metagame, you never really had to. It's like, I think we all still wanted to because those sets were so powerful in the past, but in this recent metagame, they just didn't see that type of usage. But when you have a Mon that's able to kind of just leverage its incredible boosting move, its incredible just normal defensive typing, to do this, I mean, yeah, losing to Air Slash like this is definitely pretty just infuriating. And I definitely understand why there were people that voted ban just because they thought this Mon like genuinely added nothing to the tier. and was just more hassle than good to keep around. I voted not ban it because I'm a baller like that. Instead, I have people asking me how I could ever ban Iron Thorns instead of Pom Pom, despite both being unproven, and my ass literally responded to these people like, bitch, how dare you say that to me of all people? The #1 writer for Iron Thorns for literal months. How could you? And yeah, next game, FrankJosh versus Pokéslice. This is Pokéslice's debut into the Smogon Champions League. His first match to get onto the sheet, if you will. And I like the team he brought. It's a cool balance build, mostly because this ends up being a Stealth Rock to Dunsparce, which I know I called fake in yesterday's video, and I stand by it. I don't think I'd use rocks on this mon, but I will acknowledge it is cool to have an alternative Stealth Rocker get used on the team. I mean, there's not really a lot else I could say other than that. And it's just a cool spike stack team. Once again, you have a team with a ton of Pokemon that probably are not caring about hazards. Like, the one mon on this team that's gonna maybe care is Croak. And most Toxicroak are lefties at worst. So, even though FrankJosh also has a spike stack team of his own, it's not really gonna get the same type of mileage. Especially because he only has one knockoff user. He's got Trick Florges, probably. Just looking at the team, I would assume it's Trick Florges, because I think Life Orb Shao is kind of just always what you want on Spike Stack. So I'm kind of looking at it from Scarf Florg, Life Orb Shao, some SD Overquill variant. And you got Rock Zong, Spikes Gastro, and then I'll admit I was a little surprised at first, but then it made sense when I thought about it more. It ends up being a defog Decidueye, but it makes a lot of sense when you look at his team. It's not a true Spike Stack team, because he's not really... He doesn't end up running up the boots on everyone like you would otherwise. And defog Decid does end up kind of being a necessary evil in some ways, just to make sure you do not get Giga Gapped in the Hazards game. This Gardecuno is very good. Calm Mind Gardecuno is an insane threat. Like I said yesterday, I agreed with Slice's VR post that the Future Sight pivot sets are kind of doo-doo, and Calm Mind is just far more useful to maximize his mon's talents. And there is a dark type with Intimidate. Now, on this team, it probably, I would never assume it would even be a specially defensive Overquill variant. So I don't anticipate it trying to check this anyway, but consider the other mon on his team that could try to check Gardecuno that's also offensive. Florges. Florges may come in, it threatens tricks. Maybe he ends up though Moonblasting, predicting Slice to switch because of Moonblast, or not Moonblast threat, because of trick threat. Moonblast may drop your special attack, which means it'll raise Gardecuno's special attack. And obviously that's no good for FrankJosh. And overall, his team just does not really pressure this mod well at all. His counterplay is Bronzong, and yeah, that mod has exactly one move that is kind of problematic. Now, he has that move, but yeah, Gardecuno has a lot of leverage this game. Anyhow, Slice deciding he likes Spike. FrankJosh deciding he likes Chipmunkies because it helps open up things for Overquill and Florges long term. As we now see here, the Dunny is Stealth Rock. And it's also Dragon Tail. So really buying into the Hazard Stack idea with his team. Just trying his best to maximize his hazards. Now, one thing I'll point about Slice's team that is probably like the only knock I'd give it, other than maybe some sets I'm not like a huge fan of, relative to what else you could run. His team is Spike Stack with no removal, and then like one mon on his team learns knockoff, and that's Toxicroak. I'm not sure I love that. And yeah, Dedun goes for the body slam here. Now switching into Gardecuno because, well, most of the time this just absolutely just obliterates Bronzong. But then you see there it's Gyro Ball. It's kind of like, ugh, I don't like that. He recovers up here though, and you may think this is a free trick for Josh, but no, he does go for Synthesis here. So this Klefki sack attempt turns into just an opportunity to get your layers. Slice is going to be able to maximize his spikes very, very nicely. And like I was talking about, this is not your traditional Hazard Stack team in NU. Traditional in the sense of this past month. But Gastro's not boots like it probably would be otherwise. And I mean, it's also just not got a ton of naturally ground immune Pokemon either, as a result, Spike immune. So something to think about, I feel, long-term for Josh's team, if you would ever want to use something similar. I do think there's optimizations to be made. Gardecuno ends up going for another Calm Mind after chipping the Zong. Takes nothing from the Psychic Noise. Now he's able to get another massive hit off. And we see this Gyro Ball range of damage outcomes is quite wide. 42 on the first one, followed by a 48. And we do see a nice little recovery there because he knows, hey man, if he wants, he can try to stall out more gyros. Otherwise, maybe something like this happens where a switch occurs, and then Florgus overpredicts, thinking that Trick Threat was enough. It was not, though. So Florg dies after giving Gardecuno a boost, and then Shao dies after getting goobed by the Terra. So overall, this Galarian Articuno putting in absurd amounts of work. You may think Bronzong's a good answer, and it does end up winning this exchange, because Slice just honestly gets a little unlucky here, and the Zong high rolls another Gyro. Dude, look at that damage. If this Gyro did not high roll, I believe Slice was winning the game, bar a miss from Hurricane, just with the Gardecuno outright. But ends up being fine for him. As Decky Dewey comes out, you see this is the most bulky set of all time. And his Croak does not care. We'll Gunk Shot you to the next turn. And I'll admit, this turn here, or this sequence here, I thought was a little wacky. So, the Toxicroak reveals Swords Dance, which, with it being knockoff and Gunk Shot, I thought was wild. Because, like, what the hell is Swords Dance doing on here? How do you fit that on this set? And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, surely you're not Sucker Punch still, right? Which means you are CC. Because I just can't fathom this mon would run Gunk Shot, knockoff, Sucker Punch, Swords Dance. Which makes this next turn from FrankJosh all the more kind of weird, because he goes for Swords Dance, trying to outplay a Sucker Punch that I don't think was ever coming. And then we see it confirmed here that it never was coming. This is just close combat. So I thought that was really odd. Obviously, hindsight's 2020. It's very easy for me to say after the fact that I've watched this replay a couple times, and I'm aware, hey, this just does have CC knockoff Gunk as its only attacks. But even watching, like, there's just something about seeing knock into Gunk that would throw off insane amounts of red sirens in my head about even the presence of Sucker on the set. So I don't know. But congratulations to Mr. Pokéslice, his debut SCL game going very, very nicely. And now you may think we're still watching Pokéslice because it's the same avatar in a very similar team, but no, now we're watching ZS versus the Doctor of the BJ. And ZS pretty much brought the same team. He's got the same Klefki to Dunsparce, Flygon. I had to remember which other mod was shared. And then he just picked a different fighting type, a different water type, and a different flying type. Very, very funny how that came about. And Mr. Blow has a very nice looking balanced build as well. My gripe with his team, I think, was just that it's like, I'm trying to remember, I had a specific thing I didn't love about it at first, but now I can't remember, so it must have not been that important, right? Oh, I love when that happens, man. I'm like, oh yeah, I have something insightful to say. Never mind, I don't. Am I thinking about his? No, I might be thinking about someone else's team. I may be thinking about the last game. I think I had a comment about Danny's team. Maybe it is that. Anyhow, this game, my best way to summarize this battle is ZS continuing to push the boundaries on how much he can make my favorite Pokemon, Frygon. Wow. He's trying to push the limits on Flygon, and like I said, how broken can he make this mon look? Once again, innovating another variant to it. A little spoiler, this is not a new set for him in terms of just identity, but maybe rather the setup of it. But I do, again, like the angle of spikes. The only thing I, once again, don't love is that it's spike stack with no removal of any kind, and you have a single Knockmon. That just always, to me, is a little meh. It's just not a thing I prefer. I always would love more hazards. Big thing for this game, too, though, is the Mienshao from Mr. Blow. It's got a really good matchup. This was even brought up after the fact in, I don't remember how quickly after the fact, because this game was actually played on, like, the first hour of last SCL week getting posted. But this team has Kilo Watchel as its only fighting check. Its only resist to CC. And yeah, Mienshao from Mr. PhD here is quite scary. Obviously, you'd assume Vaporeon could Terastallize into something that resists it. Same with the Dunsparce. But immediately, Shao lead is so scary. So naturally, I would always lead Kilo if I'm BJ, because I know this mon's being led with, but it's not. And then I also always would stay in and CC on turn 1. But both of these players are apparently just very dishonorable. And it's just bad. Now you're also going to see ZS experiment more with just what type of bullshitter he can get away with. There's an Air Balloon Klefki here. And that seems pretty reasonable at first. And then it goes for Play Rough on the Kilo and just yoinks its fucking boots, which I thought was hilarious. So the Magician Klefki coming up pretty clutch here. Because stealing Kilo boots means now, when these Stealth Rock go up from the Dunsparce, they actually matter quite a lot. It's now Kilo, which is the speed control of the team, because once again, it is Spike Stack. You just kind of can assume Life Orb Shao and be right a pretty good majority of the time. But now this mon's forced to take Rock's Chip, and obviously that player, if it hit, it'd be great. But that's going to make this mon a lot easier to pressure long term. Especially since ZS also is probably fastest mon Kilo, just given the, again, the idea of these spike stacks. None of that really ends up mattering though, because this Flygon comes out, Dragon Dance is up and does 5 million. And we also see, once again, ZS testing the limits to Flygon with a very bulky EV spread, taking nothing at all from this heavy slam. And still being able to two-shot Zong with a Fire Punch. Pretty evil. But don't worry, it gets worse for BJ, so ZS DD's up again. And he doesn't even Terra. He lets this Moonblast hit him for all of that damage, because he knows how bulky he is. It doesn't matter. He lives it easily. And it gets worse. The Muk comes out, and he gets Terra Fairy substituted on. And because of how bulky this mon is, it doesn't even break the sub. So now this just allows ZS to two-shot Muk with an EQ. Also, that damage is vile, frankly, considering it's +2, but bulky Flygon. I'm just amazed it almost one-shots. Then a Gastro comes out. You may think this mod KOs Flygon from here, but it doesn't. So the game's just over, and then he gets frozen. The reality is, by the way, this game was actually, like, over without that freeze. There's nothing he can do about it. So, Ice Beam Freeze keeps the game going. Dedun now comes out, doubles back to Shao, because with Sylveon gone, Blowjob is now in the same spot. Just calling him out off rip, why not? But Mr. PhD is now in the same spot where he has just a Kilo to resist fight, and he already teared the Muk, so nothing could Terastallize to resist CC either. For some reason, this is not close combat. It's 75 turns in a row already, so ZS is doing something very, very wrong here. But first, he will go for some paralysis fishing, because, I mean, it would just be good to have this mon limited by a full para. He ends up getting that full para there, as now Zong will come out, because I guess it in theory checks this, but immediately Dragon Tailed out for some Chippy. Kilo Roost, you could slam that, you could detail that too. You could Roost on it. There's really nothing was wrong there. But I think keeping this at full is always better, because there's kind of no easy way for Mr. Blow to actually do anything to Dedun, unless, you know, like that happens there, where Shao gets Dragon Tailed in. So, Flygon now, unfortunate it was not able to just sweep everything in sight, instead being used as the sacrificial lamb after dealing immense damage to Mr. Blow's team, as now Kilo picks off the Zong, Shao comes out, and we actually do end up seeing this is Scarf Shao on the team from PhD, so he ended up valuing having the extra speed as opposed to a little bit of the extra braking power he could have had with a Life Orb. And then we get the same exchange here. I'm not going to bore you with this. We're just going to, again, kind of skip through. A switch occurs, a Roost occurs, a Kilo occurs. You know, at this point, it's kind of just a slow grind where there is some positioning that Mr. Blow is going to need to have much of a chance. And with how much this thing does, too, he's just... I mean, at this point, Dedun's just made too much room for himself. So Shao now can come out. He can CC, get a kill, but he does not do nearly enough to this mon here. And obviously going into Gastro would not have been enough either. just because, look, I mean, look how freaking low it is, man. So he would have needed to get, like, a dodge there on the air slash. And then I believe he actually would have had a shot. Kind of crazy, too, by the way. If he had... That's what it actually proves, though. He had to switch here. ZS did. Because if Mr. Blow just CC'd with his Shao, he was always outspeeding. So, pretty cool win for ZS here. As we now get into the final game of the week. And, oh my lord. The summary of this game is Eliaspsy cooked once again. I was going to say he cooked too close to the sun, but no. His tech actually ends up working out this battle. It's just a very funny one. Danny's team, I'm going to be real, champ. I don't like this team. I think Danny's team has the cursed combo of, like, it just... I don't see the goal with the team. And my most charitable interpretation is it is just your standard type of spike stack, but I think it goes too passive. I think it's probably the Glowbro? Maybe the Registeel? I think one of those mons ends up having to be changed out for just something else that adds a little oomph to keep the team from being too weak, because this team is basically held together by the hopes of a Life Orb Mienshao doing enough damage to make up for the fact that nothing else on this team has EVs allocated to an attacking stat. I'm probably taking that a little bit too, you know, extreme, but that's what it looks like from preview, man. Like, I don't really see what else on this team is supposed to do damage. So you end up having Danny rely very heavily on passive chip. You know, you got Scald Burns here, you potentially even have Toxic here, this could have Sludge Bomb. You got all of that, those can induce status, of course, and you have your Spikes and your Stealth Rock. And then you got Life Orb Shao, which is just naturally a very strong and disgusting Pokemon. Is that enough? I don't know. I don't feel like in most games it would be enough, and I don't think in the most traditional Elias teams either it would be enough. Like, I feel like Elias most of the time is going to be fine under that angle, because he brings pretty fat teams naturally. I don't feel like Mienshao as your sole form of breaking is enough into that. Meanwhile, Elias brings what looks pretty tame, frankly. Little fight spam going on with some spike stack. There's nothing extreme about that. I have like so little to say because I don't feel like either player has some obscene matchup. I just feel like Danny's team's a little suboptimal because it's too passive, personally speaking. So as we play this game, Mr. Roar is led with into Mr. Gligar, and they just end up trading status moves here. Toxic onto the Incineroar, a Will-O-Wisp onto the Gligar. This Wisp on Gligar is definitely annoying for Danny. It's literally because this Mon technically would like to be able to do more damage to Mienshao if it's trying to pivot in on it. And now it can't. Like, it ends up revealing Acrobatics later. That would smoke Mienshao, man! So unfortunately he's not going to be able to do that. Bombird comes out here. And we see Danny immediately trying to utilize Mr. Bombardier to its maximum capabilities with a knock into a Brave Bird predicting the wish. Brave Bird just doesn't do damage though. Sylveon eats that quite nicely, and actually Moonblasts as well, just because he doesn't die to another Brave Bird, and I guess Elias is just not going to care about a crit. So now Danny gets all his hazards, except, you know, you're missing that last layer. You gotta go get that last layer, man. But now Elias decides to join in on the fun too. Gastro is not sticky hold, so you do end up knocking it successfully. Bombird catches a poison, which is not good. And now Gastro could even just go back to setting more hazards if it wants, really. I mean, it would not be bad. He ends up recovering, though, because he just doesn't want Bombird trying to trade itself off with Brave Bird. As now he can start the spike stack again. And now it's actually Elias with the advantage. Look at that. So Bombird gets his Wish Pass. He could Brave Bird here. He could knock if you want to predict a Bronzong switch in, I guess. Bombird just ends up knocking. And catching Gibson there is, of course, good too. Mon is, of course, very weak to entry hazards. And now, with Elias having no way to remove them from the field, he's just in a very nice spot. Because now, Incineroar has like one switch in. So, pretty good for him. Gligar now going to have to go for a little Roosty Roost if it wants to stay in the game. He ends up hard switching into Glowbro, which I guess works out because he's got Calm Mind. So he pretty easily can trade versus Bronzong, and Incineroar is just going to be forced to come in now and sacrifice itself, because otherwise, what do you do? And now, this is where the game got funny. So, Elias goes into Mienshao, and he ends up revealing he's got something very, very sinister. Danny actually sacks his Shao here, because I think he just had no clue what was getting used. I think he expected some, like, banded Terra Dark knockoff or something, which I have no clue if this would have even lived. But he sacks Shao, and it's like, okay, Terra Blast Ghost, pretty cool tech. Yeah, okay, pretty cool tech, man. So Bombird comes out, because he knows it's choice locked. He just probably, I think he thinks it's banded right now. Bombird, though, now comes out, because he knows he can threaten out the Shao. And he trades off a little bit more damage on the Zong. Definitely, though, expected a swap to Sylvia on one of those turns. And he ends up just deciding, no, it's okay to sacrifice his entire Bombird here, and this would end up being his demise. So Glowbro comes back out. Mienshao can easily switch in, because it's not dying to, like, a flamethrower here. And Danny believes he's safe. But he's not. He gets one shot by Terra Blast Ghost. Even asking, what set is that? Oh, don't worry, my son. You will see what that set is later. And naturally now, the entire, like, offensive potential of Danny's team has been sapped. And he's gonna now be reliant on the passive chip that he can get through the injury hazards, and then through potentially Vapo Skull Burns or Gligar Toxic Spread. And as, you know, as a Danny superfan, I don't like to say this, but I'm not too sure it's a recipe for success when Elias's team just naturally has such good durability inbuilt. You got Regen on Shao, you got Wish Pass, Gastro is Recover and also just walls Vaporeon. Like, this Gastrodon can literally sit in front of Vaporeon for as many turns as it pleases, trying to get a Sludge Bomb Poison on it. So, it's not exactly a great outlook for Daniel YSP. The one positive to take from that is he is able to Wish Pass into Gligar. Also, I feel like I said this would roost earlier. Yeah, I definitely said this was gonna roost earlier. Literally, why? Why'd I say that? I don't know, man. Turns out when you're tired, you say things you shouldn't say. Yeah, no, there was no roost he could have gone for earlier. If there was a roost he could have gone for earlier, he would be playing RU right now, because this Mon would not be an NU. Anyway, nice predict there on the Ice Punch. I'm so glad I at least noticed it now, but I already know I got some weirdo commenting. Oh my god, bro. They're thinking Gligar has Roost in 2024. Shut the fuck up, you dumb, stupid, dumb idiot. Anyhow. A lot of this endgame, I'm gonna be honest, is pretty uneventful. But now that Mienshao's back in, I believe we actually get the set reveal here. Danny switches to his Vaporeon, I think because he has no fucking clue what to expect. Probably expected an ice move, and he got Focus Blasted in the dome. So yeah, the Shao very much confirming into specs. And unfortunately for Danny, it's, yeah, you know, it's, getting roared there is not what you wanted. The roar disrupting the Wish Pass here is actually so key, because now Vaporeon just cannot try even pretending to check the specs. Mienshao. It can't. Registeel is able to kill Palmont here, but I mean, you're just gonna go out to Gastro now, and once again you're gonna force some more damage. You could even double the Shao here if you really wanted on Gligar. I think it would be a fully okay play, but instead Elias just opts for the Earth Power into the hard switch to Shao. That ends up being fine too. I don't think there was a double switch that Danny had anyway. And now Mienshao is going to be able to just KO everything left on Danny's team because he got all the chip he needed. I hope all y'all enjoyed. This was a very funny week of games. I did not cover the McMegan game because he brought Stall again, and I'm sorry. It was actually a really, like, pretty good game. I believe Watashi played quite solidly in it to try to get whatever advantages he could. But on this type of day, my brain needs a rest. I'm not talking about Stall with y'all. But I do hope all y'all enjoyed. I thought this week had a lot of good games, honestly. This game was just kind of traumatic, but I had to feature it given the Oricorio ban. This game I thought was cool because Slice, of course, got his debut on the sheet. ZS had a cool team here. Like I said, pushing the limits with the Flygon sets. And then we had Elias pull out Specs fucking Mienshao, man. I'll see y'all in the next video. Take care, y'all. Peace.